Welcome everybody today for the Energy Newsbeat podcast. Today we have a really cool guest. He is the president of Mudrock Energy, David Boyer, and I've had the pleasure of getting to work with David on some projects, and we're just really thrilled. We've got some more projects coming around the corner, and so welcome, David. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks, Stu. I appreciate the invitation.
Oh, well, I didn't mean to say anything nice to you about all your good work, but I'll tell you what, my team absolutely loves the data work that you do. And just as another side note, on the Energy Newsbeat website, which is energynewsbeat.com, we have David's from Mudrock Energy there in bed on our site for the rig counts. And I'm telling you what, that is a good looking rig count and it's updated all the time. I like it because I don't have to update it. So thank you very much for having that. So
of course, thanks.
Anyway, where we're at right now is we have got a heck of a report, and David knows data. Mudrock Energy knows data. Let me just go ahead and set that for your bar is way high, David. So when you take a look at your clients, they're mostly upstream, and you are it's an APP engineer.
Geologist. So my background was started in geology, yes.
And what prompted you to get into geology?
So, I mean, back in high school, we actually created a class that was environmental studies. And in that class, we created a stream restoration project where we were going out in the field, taking measurements with GPS units, measuring stream banks, seeing what changes over time. And we wrote growing greener grants to the state, and we put a whole lot into this class and learned GIS. And so from that, I really got into the earth science and went into college with that. And then on the oil and gas side, I got an internship while I was in college and just fell in love with all the data and just understanding of all the science and all the stuff we put together to make a prospect. And from there, got into oil and gas, and then got hired out of college, and from there kept on going.
I'll tell you what, your work with GIS layers is phenomenal. And so if you ever need a recommendation from anybody, please give them my name and number, because you just rock at doing that.
Thanks.
And so this presentation that you did, tell me a little bit about, it was a hour-long presentation, and you're prepared for it. I mean, there's some data in this bad dog. So tell me a little bit about the presentation.
Yeah, so our local land group from the AAPL reached out to me. Their president I'd worked with in the past, and he's seen a lot of my work on LinkedIn. And it was like, this would be really valuable to our membership. Mm-hmm. And so, I decided, I was like, yeah, I'll be willing to do this. And so, it's a broad-based coverage of everything that happened in, generally in Appalachia in 2020. We're covering commodity pricing. We cover, rig activity, production, oil, gas, and I'm looking at M&A, and then just followed up a lot of the employment stuff I was doing on LinkedIn and got a lot of traction talking to different people about it. So we put that in there too, as it was really pertinent to what was going on with the landmen group.
When I was going through prepping for our podcast today, I mean, when you do read off this hit list here of commodity pricing, rig activity, mergers, M&A, there were over $2 billion in regional activity and production volumes, all this. So as we kind of go through some of these numbers, you also just told me we had a big announcement today. What was that announcement?
Yeah, so EQT, who is the largest natural gas producer in the United States, has gotten bigger again today with the purchase of Alta Resources. So it's a $2.9 billion deal for another BCF a day. And so one interesting factor, I looked this morning, and so I said, well, if EQT was a country, how big would they be? And so, they would be the 16th largest producing country based on the latest data that I had. So they'd be between the UAE and Uzbekistan. And so, that's the type of volumes they're going to have following this acquisition from Alta. So, they're really the most active operator up here right now, and they just continue to build.
Oh, that is fantastic. So let's go get them as a client. Okay. When they see this podcast, they're going to call you right up. What do you think? So, man, that is cool. That's some big bucks. And
Yes. Now the market, on the other hand, may not be as excited about it. It was down about 7.5%, 8% this morning. So we'll see where it shakes out.
it will. I have not gone through their assets yet, but what do you have you been able to go through their assets, or what was
Yeah,
purchased?
I haven't looked at it closely yet, but it was looking like based on their acquisition of Chevron from last year, it's about 50% of the asking price is production volume. So the flowing volumes is 50% of that 2.9 billion. And the other
Wow,
half is going to be the midstream and some of their hedging contracts and other things on that end.
fantastic.
So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out here. And then of the purchase, 1 billion was in cash. The remainder is in new stock allocations. So
Oh my gosh.
there, and that's probably one of the reasons why the market's not so favorable about it here.
I wonder a couple things. What's a few billion between friends, and how much of that's going to executives in order to close that? So, as a shareholder, we're going to cover some ESG here in a little bit because you did cover that very well. As you were digging around, so M&A and everything else was 2 billion. So we're already getting ready to pass that for this year. We're going to hit that. Do you see any more mergers coming around the corner?
I don't know. We'll see.
Who knows, right?
I mean, there's a couple operators up here. I think that, if they get the right number, they'll sell any day now. So it just depends if they get the number they're looking for.
Well, one of your topics was commodity pricing. And when you take a look at $2.04 MCF, and on the barrels was 39.39. Where in that's compared in 2019, oil returned to negative 75% at pre-COVID. 75% as COVID was coming back on. Tell me a little bit about the increase back in there.
So what we saw there, I mean, obviously everyone knows oil went negative back last spring, right around this time.
Holy smokes, yes.
and so we had that really big decline there in the oil price. But by the end of the year, oil price had recovered back 75% of the start of the year of 2020. Now we've exceeded that going into 2021. On the natural gas side, we didn't see quite the negative. And at the end of the year, we did see a nice spike in Henry Hub price. Right. However, as see in my presentation there, on the basis, when we're looking up at Northeast, we didn't see that increase because of the basis pricing. It's all about capacity. And we don't have enough pipelines up here. And so our capacity is still really highly utilized. And so when that price went up, EQT and others put more gas into the lines, and that brought that basis price down even lower. And so it was a really steady price for the most part throughout the year. We didn't see that bump up at the end of the year in the Henry Hub.
You just mentioned their purchase EQT of the midstream and pipelines is a fantastic investment. You're always going to need them. And if we ever stuff in hydrogen, you can put in natural gas and hydrogen in there. That technology is getting better. But you brought up a horrible political issue, and that is the XL pipeline, Line 3 and Line 5 going to Canada. Does the Appalachia have much effect on that?
Those, no. Oil is really moderate, a small commodity here, and we don't flow into those at all. The two we have that are going on really big here are MVP, which is EQT's midstream company, EQTM. MVP keeps having all kinds of issues now down in North Carolina, and it just keeps getting delayed and delayed and delayed. And then we have what's called ACP, which was the Atlantic Coast Pipeline that is coming down through here. Berkshire Hathaway has now since purchased the Dominion line. Right. And they said, they agreed to not continue it. So it'll be interesting to see if Berkshire Hathaway now puts money back in. I mean, this line's already partially built and in the ground with right-of-ways, cleared. So hopefully that, next couple of years, they get back on this and work through it, but we'll see what happens.
Everything's kind of funny about the Green New Deal and all the energy requirements and everything else, and pipelines and natural gas are the key. You can't get from here to, energy nirvana as people are trying to without natural gas and the pipelines, and the Appalachia is very, very critical.
Right.
And I loved your chart on the commodity price response, 30 years of EMP OFS employment data. Holy
Yep.
smokes. I mean, tell me a little bit about that chart, because you have it down by the Great Recession, the shale bust, and how all of this goes in. And if we can kind of get just a little history, how is this going to pan out from 2020 and a little bit of, are people going to see any relief out there?
Right. So you're referencing where we put together, I was modeling the Bureau of Labor and Statistics and their employment history and compared that to oil and gas production in a BOE. And then, so we were looking at, as you know, we saw shale plays come in here. There was a big, huge boom in oil field service employment. And, you got a lot more drilling rigs, a lot more frac companies, and just all the related service, all the water systems, everything that's going in. You got this really big boom, and we're experimenting with plays all over the country. So, following that first crash, we had a lot of those oil field services jobs disappear. And so you see that kind of come down. And then, we had another little up and down. We've had a couple other troughs here recently. And so what we're seeing is a couple of things is, one, we're seeing increased efficiencies.
Right.
We're getting rid of rigs that aren't as efficient. We're getting frac crews that are much more efficient. But we're also moving to core plays. And recently we're seeing what I call, the kind of efficiency peak. We're also completing a lot of ducts. And so is this efficiency peak, able to be continued? Or will it kind of go away here as we move forward? And that's kind of the big question. Can we flatten it off? Will we continue to grow, or will we drop off? And I think there's a lot of great companies out there trying to push the technology to keep this efficiency building and do more with less employees. They're really trying. I think it'll probably fall somewhere in the middle. I think there's going to be continued efficiencies. It's going to be more efficient with EQT, continuing to grow, fewer operators. There's definitely some efficiency there as well. But, overall, I think the employment side, I don't necessarily see it going up a whole lot, especially in 2021. We keep seeing, I saw another announcement today of more people being let go. I forget what company that was. And up here recently, early in the year, Repsol let go of pretty much the entire office. So it's, not really seeing that employment pick up anytime soon in my, on the upstream side. Deloitte had a good paper showing where, on the downstream sector, especially with oil prices now continuing to increase, downstream, we'll see, a lot of those jobs come back. On the upstream side, it's going to be slow.
I'm just sitting here looking at some more of your data and stuff, and when you take it after the employment efficiency, we'll jump into that here in a sec. But you'd mentioned SPUDs. I mean, PUDs, and then the SPUD. In taking a look at the SPUD and the PUD, the year over year, the SPUD is when they get the casing down in there. And you had the Marcellus was down 35%, the Utica was down 42%, and the vertical wells was 73%. Can you tell us a little bit about the PUD versus SPUD and how those numbers kind of impact? Is it going to mean anything for this year?
So what we saw this year, yes, I think you'll see that come up a little bit. That we had the SPUDs were down. Ducks up here weren't quite the same as what we're seeing out west in the oil window. So, on the duck side, we might have a little play with that in 2020, but I don't think that was a huge driver. But on the SPUD side, that big shift down will come into play a little bit here, especially early on in 2021. And we saw that in the production a little. If you looked at the production rate, we were up 3% in 2020.
Right.
But this is also year-end exit rates, just to be clear. And then, but the Utica dropped off quite a bit. And so, especially on the oil production side, Utica had surpassed Marcellus a while ago, but this year, the Marcellus has jumped the Utica again, and we got back on top of it because we're seeing continued, development and production in the Marcellus at a greater rate than we are in the Utica right now.
Your efficiencies and everything else else were phenomenal. A lot of people don't think about those efficiencies and better equipment and getting all these. I don't think that the employees will be able. I mean, if you're a rig hand, there's a culture. There is a culture with all the guys. They're the last cowboys out there. I can't see any of them going to work on solar panels. I just can't. All the guys have the hard hat and everything else. All the guys I know on a pad, they ain't going to go. So anyway, that was pretty sad on it. Never mind. That was just a moment of silliness there.
Well, it's hard, like with the office folks too, in general. Like I was talking to another geologist the other day, and I mean, even moving into the environmental field is really tough right now for a mid-career level person, because what you're looking at is he can't apply to those entry-level positions because they'll talk to the hiring managers like, you have way too much experience for an entry-level position.
Right.
But the next level up, you need experience in environmental. And he doesn't have that specific experience in environmental. And they're like, well, we really can't hire you there either because you don't have that specific experience we need. And so these companies need to get around to that. These are great employees that have a lot of industry knowledge that can go into different routes, and that they'll understand and pick up what they need to in that next level role. But to break into that right now, it's still really tough.
Do you think, and I'm just going to throw this out here, do you think the couple $1 trillion being thrown at this would behoove them to ear tag that for training? Would training make a difference?
I mean, but that's the problem is when people want experience, training still doesn't match that, because you can, for example, this person I was talking to is a professional geologist. He has his certification with the state, but he's still in that limbo spot of no one, there's no real position for me. And so it's all about connections, talking to people, networking, and moving into these new industries. If you're going to move in, you really need to start talking to people and expressing your knowledge to them, and moving in that way, because just sending your resume over and a quick phone call on the over the phone isn't going to do it.
No, I really like that. The difference between training and experience. How do you get experience? I mean, do you want to go be an installer on a roof in a home, in a home market or end consumer, and you've been a big wig at an oil company? Yeah. I don't think so. I mean, anyway, Uber drivers, they're not going to need that many, I guess. I don't. Anyway, on environment, social, and governance, ESG. I loved your slide here as well, too. One of the funny things that we're seeing out there is that everybody's calling natural gas green or blue. And, when you go through that, could you give us a little bit of a difference on the green and blue? Or it's like one of them is producing energy for green. If it's green, it's done by like getting the source in there.
Are you referring to hydrogen being green and blue?
Yes, but it's got to have natural gas in order to get to the green and blue. So
what they're talking about with green hydrogen, what they're talking about there is they're taking energy from solar panels, extra energy from solar panels, wind panels, and then electrolysis to release hydrogen from water. Gray is then from, I believe what they're calling gray hydrogen is reformed from natural gas, and then it is the carbon capture under a reservoir, and then black is just your standard steam reformation with the things going out. But so what's going on with the natural gas side is we're starting to get what's called this, the certified responsibly sourced gas. And so this started
responsibly sourced gas. I love that.
Gas. So the first known one was Southwestern up in Northeast PA, and they had a deal with New Jersey natural gas system, where I think it was 2018 they started this responsibly sourced gas. So they're measuring methane emissions, water sourcing, and coming up with a measurement of best practices to be responsibly sourced. EQT has recently announced 2 really big projects on this responsibly sourced gas program down here in Southwestern PA. And just last week, Northeast National Energy also moved in and is doing another project similar to EQT on the responsibly sourced gas. And so that's a big push where they're getting a bump up in their prices because some of these utilities are saying we'll pay you a little extra if you have this extra responsibly sourced tag on your gas. And then on the other side, we've got renewable gas, which the Rice, the Rice team that bought or that was purchased by EQT, and then now the one Rice brothers back as CEO of EQT. Well, their brothers and father have they have an investment firm, and with that firm, they opened a SPAC last year. One of the many SPACs, and they are announced that they're putting together their SPAC into a renewable natural gas company, where they're combining two landfill gas companies into one. And so on that program, they've announced that they're getting $15 in MCF for the next 20 years for their gas, their renewable gas coming out of the landfills.
I'm sorry, you cut out. Did you say 50? I'm just kidding on the cutting out. 15?
Yes.
No way.
And now, see, again, a lot of that is, it's all paper, right? Because I think a lot of those deals are coming out of Europe. And so they're getting this money coming from Europe to, replace the Russian gas, essentially. So, in Europe, they're using Russian gas, but they'll pay the operators over here to say now that they're using, green gas. So you're getting these credits, across the Atlantic.
My goodness. That is a hoot. The Nord Stream 2 is absolutely a mess between Russia and Germany. Mm-hmm. And with the sanctions that they put on the boat, and then they're trying to get it started. And Germany, who's supposed to be the most green country in the planet, needs natural gas like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
So natural gas is king over there, and energy independence and natural gas go hand in hand. You cannot have energy independence without natural gas. So I'm sorry for over here being the natural gas kind of cheerleader there. 15, and it's kind of like Tesla. Poor guy can't make a car that's even profitable, but he's making all of his money off of Bitcoin and tax credit, renewable credits. The man's brilliant. So, that's actually kind of funny on that. So when you do take a look at ESG, natural gas is the key. I'm sorry for shouting that one out there to you, but I think you just agreed with everything there. So as we wind up, we're going to put all this in the show notes. We're going to have this with all of David's contact information. And David, any last words or heads up of give us a prediction of what you think is going to happen in 2021?
Well, I think there'll still be some consolidation, especially up here in Appalachia.
Yep.
And I think the hiring will pick up a little bit, but I don't see, we're not getting anywhere near the levels we were a few years ago.
Wow.
And, I still think next year is going to be a tough year, 2021. Oil and gas is not going away. It isn't. Right. It's here. It's important. I think we're gonna have a couple, at least another year of down here, but I think it'll pick up. And I appreciate asking me to be here today. It's nice.
Thank you very much. And I'll tell you what, Mudrock Energy.com, I believe that is correct. Yes. We will have all your contact information, and with these big ESG programs coming around the corner, David, we really look forward to working with you on some of those. So thank you very much, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you, David.